Hello and welcome to this Domopalooza Roundtable on reaping the benefits of robust data governance. Today, we'll explore how effective data governance strategies lead to cost savings, increased efficiency, and greater business agility. Discover powerful Domo tools and learn how early governance investments yield long-term success in a data-driven culture. Let's unlock the full potential of robust data governance together. My name is Karl Altern, and I lead data governance here at Domo. Joining me is a panel of Domo's most seasoned practitioners. Together, they have over 20 years of Domo and data governance experience accrued across a wide range of customers and use cases. Alan, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, my name is Alan Hyman. I'm Director of Data Solutions Architecture at Search Discovery. A little bit about Search Discovery. Our mission is to help companies use data to drive business impact. As a Domo original partner, we have done over 800 Domo implementations and projects. We have over 40 Domo certified consultants and growing. Over the years, we have won various Domo partner awards for our work. I've been using Domo for over 5 years and have over 20 years experience in business management, technology consulting services, with the experience in multiple industries such as finance, manufacturing, pharma, publishing, and online advertising. I'm very happy to be here today to participate in this roundtable discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. It's great to have you here today. Grant, would you like to go next?
Hi, I'm Grant Smith. I'm a data application architect for Praxis Metrics. Praxis Metrics is a Domo consulting agency where we focus on small to medium business e-commerce companies to help them leverage their data to really make quick and decisive insights and giving them really a good eye-opening experience to all of their data. I've been using Domo for about 5 years now at this point, and really just excited to be here and have a great discussion.
Thanks, Grant. We are delighted for you to be here today with us. And last but not least, we have Alexis.
Hi, I'm Alexis Lorenz, also known as Data Maven. Along with the usual business side projects, I also work with clients to manage their instance, educate their user community, and get the most out of Domo with a strong focus on data validation.
Thank you, Alexis. So before we begin with the questions today, if anyone from the audience has a question that they would like to ask on this topic, please feel free to enter it into the chat window and we'll answer it towards the end. So Alan, I'll direct the first question to you. According to Gartner, around 50% of data governance initiatives fail to meet their targets. Based on your experience, what are some critical success factors that organizations should consider when planning their data governance strategy?
Thank you, Karl, for that question. There are a lot of things that you can do and include in your data governance strategy. And I often get the question, where do you start? And I think it's very important to recognize that governance is about people. Just as Josh James said in the general session, prioritize things that have business impact. Companies need to take stock in the inventory of data and data feeds and that they do have, and also if there's any security and privacy policies in place. I'd also like to say that we like to say use Domo to govern Domo. Use Domo's capabilities, such as storytelling, dashboarding, to help you keep track of your progress. Use the data governance toolkit and Domo stats. Make life easy for yourself. Create an engagement dashboard, and cleanup dashboard to help you manage the instance better. Use tags to help you identify which data sets need to be reviewed or deleted, and then also use alerts to monitor your instance. We have customers that use alerts to monitor data validation rules that break, data quality rules, naming conventions, and then also, I like to say, create goals, but create measurable, achievable goals. We instruct our clients to create a roadmap every year and, kind of realizing, that Rome is not built in a day. You can't achieve everything. You can't achieve all of these all at once. And because for a lot of our clients, data governance is a part-time job and not a full-time job. And then make sure your data governance program is sustainable. It needs to be make it sustainable by creating a repeatable process. Have procedures and rituals. And because a data governance program that doesn't last is just going to peter out, and then you won't get the value from your program. And then at the end of the year, stop. Take stock. In what you have accomplished. Look at your goals. Look at what you've measured from your dashboards of the goals that you've accomplished, and kind of like say, did I exceed them? Did I meet them? And what can I change for the next year?
Thanks, Owen. Certainly a lot to think about there, really. I really like the fact that you're highlighting the importance of impact and thinking about where your data governance strategy is going to have the most impact, what are the most impactful elements of it. I also liked how you mentioned the fact that it's very difficult to achieve it all at once, if not perhaps impossible, right? So planning for your data governance for the long term and thinking about how you can deliver parts of it at a time, constantly improving it as you're delivering it, measuring it, right? That sort of iterative growth there is really important for in what I've seen for implementing your data governance strategy.
Yeah. And then, also I would sort of add, like, different industries have different requirements. We have clients that are, healthcare hospital networks. We have clients that are financial services. We have clients that that are in retail, and they all have different data governance priorities. So we would manage a program differently for the healthcare network because they have to have risk when it comes to medical information, PHI information. Other clients will have other privacy implications as well. Because of the new laws that have been introduced. I was just told by one of our privacy experts that I think Iowa, there's like another state that has basically said they're going to implement some privacy laws that will be taking effect in 2025. So these are things that you should plan for, have on your horizon when you're looking at a program.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, these data privacy legislations have significant impacts on certain industries and not other ones. So if you know that your industry is impacted by GDPR or the California one as well, then I guess you have to take proactive steps in your data governance strategy to ensure that you're not opening yourselves to risks of massive fines.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And we are starting to help our clients with doing assessments for them as well, DPI assessments. We're actually doing our own assessments as well. So we're dog fooding exactly what we ourselves do in doing search discovery as well as what we do for our clients. So.
Dog fooding. I do like that phrase, but I prefer the Australian one, which is drinking our own wine.
Ooh, that sounds more yummy. I don't like dog food myself, but I do like some wine.
Thanks, Alan. So on to our next question. Grant, I often hear from customers who struggle to manage the workload of implementing a robust data governance strategy. In your opinion, what role does automation play in data governance, and how can organizations leverage automation to improve data governance processes?
Well, thanks, Karl. It's very important for automation, right? And as Alan kind of hinted, right, that sometimes you have a small team, right? Or maybe data governance isn't really given enough love in your organization. And so it usually falls to kind of like one person sometimes. Or maybe you want to make sure you have those repeatable processes, again, as Alan mentioned, so that you have that consistency in place, right? To do that, you can utilize automation to do that. And it allows you to be able to consistently and accurately make sure you're following the exact same policies you have in place as part of your governance, right? The other thing too is that if it's too difficult to do, right, to maintain, then it's not going to get done, right? Or it's not going to sustain itself. And so automation helps remove a lot of that manual process that's in place. A lot of times, like with Domo specifically, we'll utilize like the metadata information that we have, like the Domo stats, the data governance connectors that are there, and really kind of leverage those in a magic ETL process to collect all that data together, to then really apply sort of the logic for each specific instance of governance that we want to do, right? No two companies are the same, right? Governance is going to look different between one company and another company. And so you kind of have to write those yourself, but once you do, you have that automated repeated process. One way that I typically will do that too is maybe with like a recursive data flow. There's this really great function in Domo in the Magic ETL. It's an error function. Not a lot of people actually know about it. And so the error function, what I will do a lot of times, like with a recursive data flow, is to make sure that, oh, hey, I didn't actually, remove all of my entire data set that was there. And so like having an automated process, automated checks in place to check the size of the data to make sure it didn't shrink or I didn't remove all of it. And if it does, I'll throw, use a formula tile and just throw the error function in there so that it'll throw an error. It won't actually complete the data flow. It won't actually overwrite my data, right? So I have that sort of that governance, that check in place to say, yeah, hey, that's great. Or nope, it's not, we're not going to do anything. Go check this out, go fix it. And also, making sure to have the different card alerts or data set alerts in there too, right? Maybe you just want to say, hey, is this data meeting a certain criteria? Or maybe, hey, we have some maybe unauthorized access as part of the governance in there. You can use those tools as well to help sort of automate a lot of that process, removing a lot of that manual work. You have like a single dashboard you can easily look into to see, okay, where exactly am I at? Right? You don't have to then go through the activity log to see, okay, did this person access this or not, right? And it helps remove a lot of that redundant work that you have to do.
Thanks, Grant. So you sort of talked about this recursive data flow error checking thing. I mean, would this be able to solve like the issue perhaps of bad data entering into data pipelines? Would it be able to proactively like stop it?
Exactly. Yeah, you can utilize the formula tiles in there to add your condition or your checks or your filters, right? However you want to identify that bad data, and then you realize, oh yeah, hey, this is bad. I want to throw up this error and stop that data flow from processing that data. Really handy and really helpful. It saved my butt, I don't know how many times, but it's been great.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually a question that came to me, I think, earlier on this week is how we can help our customers prevent that. So Alexis, and my next question is for yourself. So we've heard a lot today about empowering a culture of curiosity within an organization. So based on your experience, how can organizations maintain a balance of adhering to data governance policies whilst simultaneously fostering a culture of curiosity?
Thank you, Karl. That's an excellent question because that balance is imperative in an environment like Domo's, where you've got business users coming in and you've also got IT engagement, et cetera. So really finding that balance to make sure that you don't have so many strict rules in place that you're then taking away the entire point of the tool, right? So I like to see a hierarchical prioritization in the rulemaking to make sure that curiosity is still supported. And so really asking the questions around what you're trying to guide versus control. Is it driven by a hard requirement like a row limit or GDPR, as we talked about before? Or is it a soft requirement like general best practices? And for the softer requirements, the perception is key. So if you look at it as though, depending on the organization, of course, it's different for everybody, but if there's that distinction between the business and IT, if you've got everything the business does is considered POC and the IT department is not responsible for it, it makes peace possible. So you really clarify from the top down that IT can't be questioned or feet held to the fire over something that was created by the business. And this reduces a lot of the stress that comes between the business and IT, because a lot of what tends to happen is Domo comes in, especially in an enterprise environment, and IT feels like the reins have been taken from them. And at the same time, the business feels like they're finally empowered to work with the business data that they're the most familiar with and they know what they're doing. So it's a really great bridge to build, and that hierarchical relationship really helps in the requirements and best practices and stuff, accountability. For the harder requirements like row count, data privacy, engagement and support is needed from the top. Engaging departments like compliance can be incredibly helpful. And you want to also make sure that that IT or the major domo is not responsible for everything and is not made out to be the bad guy. So a good way to do that is to create goals, really decide in an organized manner what the most important pieces are. Here are the hard requirements. Here are the best practices that we strongly want people to follow. And here are best practices that we would like to see, and make sure that you prioritize them effectively so that you can gain compliance in the most important spaces first. For things like best practices, it's critical for responsible use of Domo to be tied to success metrics. So users need to be driven to create responsibly in Domo. Gamification is also a great tool to inspire cleanup. And in order to support users in their journey, you can also require curated training in order to attain certain roles in Domo. So if somebody wants to be an editor, there's certain training that they'll need to take. And then this makes them aware of these best practices, rules, et cetera, how to be a good citizen in Domo. One thing that I like to remind people, especially on the business side, is we hear the term data democracy, and many people think that means that they can do whatever they want. However, a democracy is not a free-for-all. So rules provide healthy boundaries to enable capable users to explore safely.
Thanks, Alexis.
Thanks.
So you talked about this idea for curated training to attain roles in Domo. I sort of wanted to understand a little bit more about this. Are you sort of saying that perhaps when someone first gets access to Domo, they can only really be like a consumer, maybe they're the lowest role. And then if they wanted to gain the ability to create their own dashboards, they'd have to go through training?
Right, exactly. So it may not be that they start at these lower levels and work their way up, but if they're even at the outset requesting editor access, for example, that before attaining that access, they would need to go through some of the training. Or for some of the trainings, you need to do things in Domo, so it can be a little bit of a catch-22. So you might set something up like they have this amount of time after being granted access to complete these trainings. And if they don't, then their access gets degraded. And it's really important to create those boundaries and stick to them so that the messaging doesn't get confusing, or people don't feel like they can, oh yeah, they say you have to do that training, but you really don't. They'll give you the access and then they just forget. You don't want to get into that kind of situation, and which is where probably some automation from Grant would come in handy.
So then, so do you have any guidance you could give, perhaps, if users like started creating lots of content in their instance, perhaps it was like junk content, like any sort of ideas as to how we can control that? Control
is a funny word, because you really want to advise around that. You may be able to get compliance involved in some cases, but one way that you can really control it is by having some dashboards using some of the Domo stats and governance data sets in order to catch some of that behavior.
No, like that.
For example, if you've got, my favorite is when people upload a new data set every month to add the new data set, and then they add that data set to the append where they're appending all of the, yeah, it hurts, it's physically painful. That person, what I've always wanted to do in larger companies is to be allowed to just set up a call with that person and say, hey, what you doing? And try to get them clued in, because clearly there's a training gap in that situation. So you want to make sure that if you're seeing this happen a lot, if you're, watch for patterns. So if you've got an individual challenge where there's a person who is behaving poorly in the instance, and especially if it looks like something that's a training issue rather than an attitude issue, then reach out to them and offer some guidance. And if you start seeing the same behavior happening over and over again with multiple users across different departments, then you want to beef up your training, maybe have a special training to address those particular issues.
I like that. I like that a lot. I think that's great because you're sort of closing the loop. You can use
Right.
that to identify areas or users who perhaps need a little bit more handholding, a bit more training, and then you can go and deliver it to them. That way,
Right.
this is all really like doing the great job of simultaneously improving the organizational capability, which is good for the culture.
Because you're upskilling each employee that you touch, you're upskilling in their role.
Yeah, absolutely. And then simultaneously, you're also just reducing the junk content which can get in the way.
Yep.
Okay, so I see we have a couple of questions coming in. So we will address those in a moment. I do just have one question which I'd like to open to all of the panelists on this call. So data governance is constantly evolving and adapting to emerging technologies, new regulatory requirements and changes, and shifting business priorities. Does anyone want to contribute on how they see the future of data governance evolving and what trends or innovations should organizations keep an eye on in order to stay ahead of the curve?
Maybe I'll say the term everybody's been saying, ChatGPT. I think automation. Grant said it. I think and Alexis has been saying it as well. As technology more advances, you'll be able to automate more and more, and more and more of the data governance tasks. So, for instance, checking on naming conventions that people have with data sets and data flows. You can use the Domo stats and then feed that into a recommendation tool, and then have that be able to report back and educate that person. Maybe send them an email or say by the way, these are we recommend these naming conventions to help that your data is more discoverable. The same thing for managing engagement. In the breakout session that I gave actually before this one, I was talking about engagement dashboard that we had set up for one of our health hospital networks, UPMC, and in there, we look at usage of not just who's viewing dashboards and what's the latest card, but we also look at people who are creating cards and dashboards and data sets and data flows in order to not to go but to help them, educate them on okay, this is the way that we would like you to be doing this, and in the future these things will be automated.
Going on top of that too, right, in terms of automation, just the sheer amount of data that is being generated now and that is being consumed, and as there are more and more powerful systems out there to process all of this data, right, with ChatGPT, with any of these other AI models that are going to be coming out, right, they're going to require a bunch of data, and you're going to have more and more data in your instance, right? So in order to be able to scale and accurately scale and make sure that you're following the proper regulatory laws and things that are in place, automation is going to be still becoming a very key part of a lot of that. The other thing too is trying to make sure you can help sort of empower your users to also really care about governance and making sure that things are remaining clean in your instance, right? You're moving all the dead weight that's out of there in terms of the data that's no longer being used, or allowing them to make sure they follow the right standard naming practices, things like that, right? So it takes a lot off of sort of your plate in terms of like governance, or if you're like a single person, to be able to empower your other users in that system and that whole environment. So everyone then is thinking about governance, right? And helps, scale, because the more users you have, the more data you're going to have, it helps scale that out as well.
Yeah. And I think one of the issues I see a lot is where there's accidental oversharing, where people don't realize if I share this page, that shares all the data sets that are powering this page and all of the fields, not just the ones that I showed. And I've run into a lot of situations, and it's not terribly easy to unshare those items because when you unshare the page to that, it does not change the sharing on the data set. You've got to actually root through it and get there. And so something that I like to see on some bigger clients is automating PDP, so that basically when a data set is created, the switch gets flipped automatically. So the owner can see it, but if they accidentally share to the wrong people, they're not going to be able to see it. They'll say something. And if the people in the organization are trained well to not just flip it back, or you have monitoring on that, basically, if all of the data sets are required to have PDP on them, and you're required to specify who should be seeing it, it can make a really big difference in making sure that even if a page gets shared that shouldn't, data that shouldn't be shared doesn't get shared.
We had an issue like this too, because we were dealing with, PHI information. We had some PHI information on a dashboard, and some information was not. And then how do you allow, some of the information on the dashboard to show and some not? So one of our geniuses figured out, in a combination of using PDP and some of the, some work in ETLs, was able to have it so that, even though you have access to the dashboard, you may see only these data in these cards, but when it came down to the PHI cards, if you weren't a member of this group, nope, you don't see them.
You don't even see the data on the cards.
Yeah.
Yep. And you can also customize the messaging around that. So because I see a lot of clients get really concerned about having a dashboard where certain users aren't going to be able to see everything, or if you filter it a certain way, you're not going to see this product or service. So I like to use custom messages for when there's no data.
That's cool.
It's one of the little, very simple, it's a very simple setting in the cards that I think is probably often overlooked.
That's awesome.
Great. Well, some fantastic thoughts there. I really like the impact that ChatGPT and other large language models is going to have on data governance. The one which always occurs to me is scanning for PII data and fields. I think it's going to be very powerful in that regard. Individual accountability for governance is also something that we push quite a lot, and it's something we talk about a lot. We have individual accountability dashboards that people can use to sort of clean up after themselves. And also there's been some great talk about some new features, which I'm writing down and taking notes of to take back to the team. So I see we have about 3 minutes left. So very quickly, a question that did come from the audience is, do any of the other panelists here have any guidance for how to navigate the company's data governance versus Domo instance governance, or perhaps how to translate the company's data governance policies and procedures into Domo?
Yeah, so we've definitely ran into this many times, and what we usually do is we make sure that we get access to these procedures, especially when it comes to security and sensitive information. We make sure that we make similar policies for Domo governance as well as the company's governance, but we make them in a way that the business user understands. A lot of the policies in companies are like policies that run like 30 pages long, but yet business users want to know, okay, what's in it for me? What do I need to do? So we help summarize that and make sure that they know this is what they need to take care of. We also help them with translating data handling policies into Domo policy, and then also how do you then handle the review cycle too? That's also pretty important, because a lot of companies review users and what they have access to on a yearly basis, some more often. So we also help clients do that as well in their Domo instance.
So something that I also like to add to that is to make sure that IT thinks about what's currently happening versus what they're afraid of. So some of these guidelines really apply to the core systems, and you still end up with a lot of people exporting to Excel, doing who knows what, and presenting things up to upper management, right? So Domo is really the platform where you're wanting to do that. And if they don't enable that and they don't bend a little bit in some areas, then they're going to end up with still skinning the same cat with everybody doing whatever they want in an unviewable way. Sorry, that was
Yeah.
more than one sentence.
Oh, good.
No,
Well,
but
thank you very much. I think that we're about at time, but thank you very much for the thoughts today and your insights. I think they've been absolutely invaluable. Apologies to the questions that we didn't get around to answering, but I'm sure that we'll be holding more of these sessions over the course of the year. And I look forward to sharing more insights with everyone. Thank you so much.
thank
Thank
you.
you.